we have these new prompting techniques and this new way of actually editing your code using AI. So instead of giving someone a subscription for $20 a month, you can actually control what actual language models you can use in this app. And you could even run it locally with your own models on your own machine. So if your machines are capable and you're running a local language model, you can even run those and just pay $0. And so not only that, there's additional things that we're going to get into to show you how these diffing techniques are a little bit different from Cursor. So this is just one guy who's a cracked engineer who's working on this app that's available for free right now to download. And we're just going to get right into it. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, it's quite a lot to live up to. But I've been building this up for the better part of 5 months now, and it's something that like I put a lot of energy into. I'm a programmer by trade. Like I've been doing this for a long time, and someone using language models to work with, I had a lot of friction, dealing with having a ChatGPT window initially, and then using tools that will edit your files directly. But like the big problem that you always run into is like how long it takes to get in and out of your files with AI, like getting the content to the AI and getting the AI's response back into your files. Like that's just like a lot of friction. And then over time, like I've just been finding ways to make that faster, and by making it faster, it's also cheaper because you're using less tokens. And now with this new pro mode that I just released actually this week, we're able to get even cheaper using much smaller models that a lot of people have been struggling to find use for. So yeah, I've been doing that, and we can get into a demo, show you guys, what this can do.
Yeah, let's
Um,
let's
yeah,
let's go ahead and get right into it. So that'd be kind of cool. And so what we have
yeah.
here is your app, Repo Prompt.
Yeah, so that's right. So this is Repo Prompt, and behind there I've got the website for Repo Prompt, so repoprompt.com. This is a local host running. So we're gonna do a live demo to edit this website as we're working on this right now. So let me just give you a little tour of the app before we go into just making anything happen. So the big thing that you'll see when you first boot up Repo Prompt is that you're gonna open up a folder, and in that folder you're gonna see like all the files that you've got active. And if you're, an active programmer, hopefully you're using source control, and you have a git ignore. And so if there's all kinds of files that you don't want your git to see, like this will automatically detect it. And I also have my own ignore system to filter out files. So you can actually, customize that. So what the app actually wants to see, what you want to share with the AI. So you can go ahead and see like all the files that are here. We can select the ones that we want. So I've gone ahead and selected everything because, as you can see, it's a really small number of tokens. So that's a big part of this app too, is showing you like what kind of token usage you're going for. And if you want to preview things too, that's like really quick too. So like one click to open and preview. That's like a big part of the iteration flow there. So from there, we've got everything selected. One thing that you'll often run into working with AI is you're going to have stored instructions. You want to have instructions that that are explaining what your project's doing, like what it's built with. So I've got one here for the web app that I've got here, and it just tells it like what's my stack. It's using React, Tailwind, and design components, so it stays consistent with that. And then yeah, just the instructions. We can keep it simple. Um, so with the app, there's actually two ways to go about this problem. So the first one is like, the first one we can just use the API directly, and I'll show you this new pro mode that we're going to leverage as well. So I'm not going to dive into this just yet. There's a lot here, but let's just show you what it can do. So I've gone ahead and just asked the AI to add a blog to my website, so it can go ahead and plan that out. So it's going to start with the implementation. It's going to create the blog components. So here it's creating files for me. So it's adding, the basic blog component structure. Um, Adding the CSS for it. So it's going ahead, modifying that for me.
Nice.
And everything's streaming in live. So then, as we get to this third part here, we're actually editing a file. So that's different from creating files, which it tends to be a complicated problem for AIs to do. Editing is a really tricky thing. And as you can see, as they're being streamed in, we see these edit tasks that are coming up with Gemini Flash. So what that did is that basically it created the outline of what the change needs to be. It decided that, actually it's a pretty small file. It's a pretty simple change. So we're just going to ask Gemini Flash to do it. And then you can go ahead and you can see, so this is the new file, fully new. It created
Nice.
these two. And then there's this file edit here. So you can see that there's like these few edits here. And then there's this toolbar that we added as well. So we can just go ahead, accept all.
Wow.
We've done that. We can go back, and
I
then,
love the interface. It's so nice. It's clean.
yeah. And then, oh, the blog, did it show up? There it
Yeah,
is. I just have
refresh.
to refresh there.
Wow.
Perfect. So we go to the bottom here. we got a blog that was just added with some tips and tricks, getting started. So the AI just did that, coded that component from scratch, and we just live edited it right there.
Whoa.
So yeah, yeah.
So you
So
basically, on the left-hand side is where you actually select the repo, and then you check the
mhm,
files that you want it to go in. And then kind of going back, just to kind of summarize here a little bit, is that you went into like the compose view, and that's kind of where you compose the prompts. And so in there is kind of the instructions you have, and then the select files shows you all the code that's within the files. And then that little window next to selected files, there's like this little button that says how many tokens there are and how much is that's going to use. And so the tokens, that's important because some of these language models have limited windows. And then Claude Sonnet seems to have the biggest there. And then with your basic instructions, you just kind of tell it to, go ahead and do the things. And it's using your API key from Claude Sonnet, right? That's going to say, send that out and so forth. And then when it's then moves over to the chat mode, that's when the AI is trying to figure out what you're wanting to do. And it's, using those selected files and actually then doing the diffing within that.
that's right. Yeah. So what actually happened here is so we use Claude Sonnet to plan the change. So you want to use generally a smarter model to like think about like here's the problem. Um, but there's a lot of smart models out there that you don't need to have them be like expert code editors. And you can even do some work here with GPT-4o Mini. It's a pretty capable model, so a lot of people are getting good value out of coding with that. It's very cheap. But you can get even cheaper models to actually make the changes because the change application of files is such an easy task if you have it outlined sufficiently well. So like Sonnet here, it knows in the prompt that I gave it to like be an architect for the change. It knows to like add some clarity, like okay, add this at the top of the file, like and in different parts it'll be like here's the new section here. Add the blog component. So it's basically telling it what to do with some nice comments, and it's able to like make it really easy for another AI to go ahead and execute the change. Um, what's interesting too is that this pro feature that I've just added, it actually like gives you a lot of control over like how you want to allocate your token usage for your different models. Um, so, like, if you have really simple files that you're editing, you want to use like a really lightweight model that's really fast and cheap. So Gemini Flash is a good one, but even nowadays, like you can probably get some like Llama 70B versions going on and pay even less than that.
Wow.
There's probably even free models you can run to do that. Because the thing that's really nice with this Pro mode is that it like once you've asked your chat and you see all these files are selected, only Claude gets the full context, and then the subsequent models will get just the file that needs to be edited and the task to edit it. So it's very efficient on token usage for those tasks.
I see. So the biggest problem when I give Cursor my key right now is when I just say, hey, go ham on my key, and I provide my own API key, what ends up happening is that I spend a lot of money on my tokens. Like it just, if I'm not paying for Cursor and I just literally just give it my API key, it dumps in so much stuff in the
Mhm.
actual context. And sometimes I really can't control that. And that's one of the pain points if you're not going to be paying the monthly subscription is that you're kind of just giving everything to them. And then the composer mode is not something really that I can get, like too much control or fine grained. And so in essence, what this app is doing is allowing us a lot more control, and we can even select the files that we want ourselves. And then even like with, so right now, like, so this is definitely geared towards if you're much more like advanced at developing, your code base a little bit more. Even if you don't know the code base, you can do these types of things. I'd say if you're like a
Mhm.
very beginner developer, this can probably be a little too overwhelming with too many different settings. And just you're still trying to get yourself familiar with how structured code works and all these different things. But I think this is definitely a really cool tool if you're in advanced mode. I think we should also let the caveat know. Doom says like, "Hey, this isn't a cursor killer, Ray. This is just this is only on Mac." And it's like, what other computers exist out there except for Macs? I mean, like, what's a PC? I've never seen this before. um,
Well,
yeah.
a big thing about building for Mac is that like the developer tools are just so much more advanced than building for any other platform. And one of the big things that I wanted to do with this, so like a lot of other AI tools, they'll go ahead and they'll like fork VS Code or they'll be a code editor built with Electron,
Ah.
and like that's nice. But the
Mhm.
problem is that once you're getting into like a lot of parallel processing, you want to like bulk edit many files, you want to generate diffs, like you saw like how fast I was able to just hit merge changes. Like all of this got merged, diff, generated like all like in the background automatically. Like you only get that with a native app, and that's like the power of doing it like this with Mac. So
Ah,
um,
I see.
yes,
I see. So
yeah,
like for
performance
those who are
is key.
asking about
Yeah.
the app, this app that's like the cursor killer, as we're kind of deeming it, it's, we say that as kind of like buzzwordy because people wouldn't necessarily click, but I mean, our goal today is to kind of give you a heads up on something else that's a little bit different that can probably actually save you quite a bit of money and a little your pocket. And it's called Repo Prompt. And so Eric here is the founder. He's the sole founder, solo engineer working on this. Let's just tell them a little bit about your background so people kind of know where you're coming from.
Yeah, yeah. So my background is actually mostly focused on XR development. Like I know you all are probably heard recently. There's the new Meta Orion glasses. Like so, I've been developing with Hololens and the Oculus headsets for many years now. And so my background is around there in game development. But like when you cut your teeth through game development and doing that kind of stuff, you learn a lot like of math and the kinds of complexity that like difficult problems that you run into. And so I've kind of founded like my way, like just really trying things, experimenting. I have like a history of experimenting and trying new things. So I saw this opportunity to build something that I think was useful for me, and I want to like share it with people to see how it's improving other people's workflows. And like, because I know like working with AI, there's just a lot of friction. Like and one of the things that I actually want to show as well with this is that unlike most apps, there's actually a big copy button right here. And what's nice with this is that you're able to actually take all this context that we did, and I can just give you the prompt right here. And then if I go ahead and pull in a Claude window right here, I can just paste that in, and then we can just run it, and then we can see what that's going to do here as well. So like the nice thing with the app is that you're able to leverage whatever AI tools you're currently making use of. And if you don't want to use an API key, or you want to just use your existing ChatGPT or Cloud subscription, like the app is geared towards you as well. Like it's for many use cases, and you can review changes. And I use this all the time. Like I keep a Cloud subscription around because I like to just try things out and see how it goes. And you can see like we've just gone through and just added all these changes to. So like the app itself is just very versatile for just all kinds of workflows, and I'm trying to find new ones as well, and that's why like the test flight is open, and I want people to come tell me how they're using it and what they'd like to use it for as well.
That's excellent. So the best place that they can go check this out right now is if they go to repoprompt.com. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah. Repoprompt.com. There's a nice test flight link. It's open test flight, and there's a Discord link as well on there. We can take a look at that. So this is the edited version with the blog, but right now, if you go on to repoprompt.com, you'll find this and just hit join test flight or join Discord. Yeah, take a look.
That's excellent. And so I think what we should also get into is a little bit of what are some of the instructions that you like to use. I
Hmm.
one time like something I was thinking of, and something that you showed me was something about planning. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, like I think Prashad is asking me a lot about how do you build the stuff for like a backend API, because he wants to do a
Hmm.
lot of planning for that and for his app. And so
Hmm.
how would you be able to
Yeah.
like plan for something like that or hook it up? And then like what instructions do you have? Because not only like you said you can put these instructions in and then copy it out, which looks pretty cool. But it would be kind of cool to show us how you keep those instructions around, because I'm trying to use Git and I'm like, copying and pasting back and forth from GitHub, into like different LLMs to do my prompts. But I think I understand that you can just manage them all here, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we have this stored prompt section here in the app. It's a little bit cut off, I think, here because of this stream, but there you go. So we can go ahead and create new instructions. So if you're working on a backend system, so we can go like backend prompt. You can go ahead and say like, okay, well, what am I working with? I'm using Postgres. And like and like you can specify like what kind of stack you're building with. Like I'm not a backend developer myself. Like usually I focus mostly on like like I said, like game dev and native app work as well. So like you can come up with your setup like that. But like say you're using Postgres, like that was a very simple prompt. Like you can just add that there. And then what I like to do is, well, if you're planning out changes, so I came up with this architect prompt here, so we can go visualize it here. So like basically you're telling the AI, like you're giving it a persona. So like that's a really important thing. Like when you're building an AI prompt, like you have to really tell it like how it's gonna behave when it's working. Especially for smaller models. It's funny, like I found that like if you have a really small model and you forgo the system prompt, something as simple as like you're a helpful assistant, the AI is just going to spin out and not be super helpful.
Interesting.
So you want to give it like some baseline, some context of how it's working. So giving it to say you're a code architect, great. So you want it to plan out the changes on how to edit the file, but you don't want it to edit it directly. And this can help you save time on like iterating on an idea before you go ahead and execute the change. Because a lot of the times, if you're using other tools out there that are just gonna like, especially bring your own key tools, you say, oh, I want to like add comments to this area. It's going to regenerate the whole file with your Sonnet key. It's going to burn a ton of tokens. It's going to get very expensive quick. So a lot of the times using an architect, prompt is very helpful. And what's nice with this is you can use this. I gave it my stack. I give it some information. And when I go ahead and pull that out, like, so I was showing you earlier, like what it looked like. So basically I've come up with this concept of meta prompts, and this is something that like other tools are going to support as well. And that's distinct from user instructions, so just automatically like isolating what you're building, like what your task is versus like context about the task and then context about the files that you're providing. Like it's always very important to separate those things out, giving the AI really clear delimiters in the prompt, like how it's going to behave. And so doing all this, you give this all this context, you're able to get quite far with simple instructions if you give it enough pre-built context.
We have a question from Doom about prompt caching. Is that something that you're currently handling, or how's that work?
Yeah, so I support prompt caching for the system prompt right now. The thing is, if you start to like cache things more aggressively with Sonnet, that's really helpful if you're like sending all your chat history over and over again. The thing that is a little bit unfortunate with Anthropic's implementation of prompt caching is that it only supports 4 different bookmarks of like cached sections. So it's something that like I'm working towards to like caching things that won't change in a chat, like your user instructions. These meta prompts won't change. Maybe your files, but like your files actually do change. So if I hit merge changes, the files are going to change. But one thing that you're saving on using this app is that like only the latest version of your files is sent each time. You're not sending the whole history of all the changes. So a lot of other apps will, if I say okay and I say continue this chat, all these changes would normally get sent into the chat window for like everything, and then that's going to get sent out, and that gets like eats token usage really quickly. But
Interesting.
yeah, but what's really nice with the way that I've gone ahead and implemented it is that I separate out conversation history from change history from like what your files are going on. So like just as I was telling you about like separating out your prompt with a good context, like that's something that's fundamental to how the app works. And you're able to have, so if I'm iterating on the app.js file, there's not going to be 3 copies of the app.js file in my history. There's only going to be the one, and the AI is not going to get confused about which one to edit. It's going to know like this is the one that I'm currently at, and
Wow.
it's going to keep track of that quite well.
Oh, that's
So yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and yes, that you can use Ollama locally. So if I go ahead in the API settings, so here's everything I support right now. Um, so we've got Ollama settings. You can specify your model runs locally like that. You can run an open router. There's a lot of free models on open router. There's a lot of like really, really cheap models on open router. So you can use that, use whatever you like. I've
Wow.
included links to all of these as well. So if you click the eye, you're going to get sent straight there. So you can top up your API credits if you need. And also I support adding custom models here. So I come with a built-in amount of overorder models like that are just there, but like I explaining, like, so we can add like a Quen model, which is a very popular one. You can
Sweet.
just paste it in and add it there. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, so you could basically have this, and for those who are just tuning in, if you're a Mac user, this is pretty much what it's geared towards for people who are developing on the Mac. Because why develop on other platforms, right? I like to joke. I used to work at Apple for 12 years. And what most people actually don't know is I was a huge PC guy before this. And I used to just like diss Mac all the time. And then I converted, and then I just kind of can't look back. And
Yeah.
I worked a lot on the operating systems. And I really got to appreciate Linux a lot more, and got to see Apple's custom implementation, obviously at a large scale with that, and work very deeply with these things. So, yeah, if obviously for people who are looking for Windows solutions, which is a big percentage of people, this is not something that's ready for you yet. So this is just kind of something that's kind of geared towards Mac focus, and one of the bigger advantages here is like the cost savings. So you can save. Compared to just giving your key to Cursor and just letting Cursor do its thing, it's going to eat up a lot of tokens. And the other advantage here is the fact that Eric, wrote this natively to work on the Mac. So he's able to apply these changes and these diffing like in near like light speed, and then also save you a bunch of money as well. And then the other part of that is he can use smaller models or other models who are really good at code, like Gemini Flash, to do like diffing on small files or even larger files. You can pull up context windows to do those types of things. And so you're combining a lot of different magic here, right?
Yeah, and one thing that is actually like fairly unique to the app, that is a feature that is like still like I'd say experimental. Like it's not going to be like 100%, especially as models like are, getting smarter. But like, if you open up these settings here, I showed that there's three file edit formats, right? So like you got diff, whole, and none. So one thing that I think is quite unique that there's only one other system that I've seen out there, and it's called Aider. It's a command line tool, that will basically edit your files directly, and not output the whole file while it's editing. And like in a world where you're editing files that are like thousands of lines of code, like there's really no other way to go about it, because the AI is just going to get confused at one point. It's just not going to be able to echo the whole thing. And if you worked with AIs a lot online, you'll notice a lot, and all these other tools tend to run into it, is like you're going to have the AI start to be like, oh, like existing code here, or like all these placeholders
Oh my
that
God,
that
that's
just break
like
your
the
file.
bane of my existence. It's so annoying.
Yeah,
Wait, so
yeah, yeah,
how do you handle that? I guess just like some inside
yeah.
baseball.
Yeah, so the way you go about it is, you kind of it comes in multiple parts. So you have the AI kind of, you instruct it on like how to insert the change, how to like find the localize the change, and then it will output the change, and you have to kind of do some hard work engineering to fit that back into the file. And that's not an easy problem. Like, I know Ader still struggles with it. It's
Wow.
something that I've like put a lot of research into.
Hmm.
I'm finding better ways to go about it, but like, there's funny things, right? Like, I've noticed a lot working with even Sonnet and other models, that they like to input their like RLHF, like their like refined practices into the code they change. So often you'll put in a code and it'll be like, oh, this is a public function, but they're like, no, 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 this should be private. So it'll change code that was public and now is private. And then all of a sudden, if you're trying to match it, like, well, now the code is actually different, even though it's a line of code that hasn't changed. So you have to be able to track these things. And often the models will get confused and break from instruction formats, and so you have to like catch those and be very lenient. So it's something I've been working on for a while. It's like I kind of went about this the hard way, trying to solve this first, and I've recently added this pro mode to like save costs with the other way. But what's really nice is as you kind of explore with this, like you're able to use this with like pretty high accuracy edits for large files. And I think that's like something that's quite unique to this app. Like you're not going to find that in a nice GUI form anywhere
Wow.
else. And that pairs really nicely with the review screen, because if the AI does mess up and it does improperly insert a change, you're able to review it and just kind of cancel out like, okay, actually that change didn't make sense to me. You can reject it and accept it. So like if I go back here when I'm accepting changes, so these were all accepted here. But if I reset all the files, you can see each change is diffed and piecemeal. So I can accept this one here, and then all of a sudden only that one's accepted. You can undo that as well, and it goes right back. So
Oh,
you can
that's
go ahead and you
nice.
can navigate the changes. Um, you can go down. So see this one, it removed this. This is an individual change, so I can reject just comment removal, leave that there, and then accept this change here. And go down. You go through all the changes like that, and then just accept it as you need. And so now you can see like I accepted 2 of 3. I can reset it, and then all of them are back, and you just accept everything all at once like that.
That's a really nice
Uh,
interface. So just
yeah,
answering a couple
cheers.
questions in the chat. Some people were saying, "Do I have to
Hmm.
install Test Flight?" It seems like a different app than Repo Prompt. Yeah. So
Oh
for
yes.
those who are not familiar with the beta process for testing some apps, since this is a pre-release version and not on the App Store. Apple has a thing called Test Flight, which you'd be able to use to install not only this app but other apps that people give you for beta testing. Once you have that app installed, then there'll be an invite link, I think, that would be sent so that you can download the app. So that way it's available for you. And then when he pushes updates, you'll get those as well. So just a heads up on that for those who are doing some of the beta testing. So yes, this is currently in beta, Adam. Eric is actually developing. And I just thought, hey, I came across this app and I think, online and I was really, really busy with a lot of things. And Eric's like, hey, this is a really cool thing. You should check it out. And, and I saw like a second version of the video and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I think what blew me away was more about like the efficiency and the thoughtfulness for the way that the prompts are organized, and also not only that, but the diffing process and these little intricate details in engineering that you just know that someone who's building this knows what they're actually working on, and actively researching and trying to make better for not only themselves but for everyone else. And this is something that other like bigger apps that are funded, $60 million apps and stuff like that, other apps, even open source, are struggling with too. And it's pretty rare to be here early on this curve, and I feel like it's good enough for people to start experimenting with right now. And we're still so like early on this AI wave. It's just really insane. And so I just thought, hey, if this is something that I'm going to be using in my apps and going to be doing my live streams, I actually think it's cool enough to just talk to the founder. So yeah, this is a great time, especially if you're joining live, to ask us any questions, because this is it's a rare moment. It's not pre-recorded, which is one of the awesome things about live streams and something that we do here. And yeah, a little bit about Eric is he's pretty much a cracked engineer, working on this full time. He's got a newborn that's here, and then he's taking care of, and also he's got his full time job. So this is literally like his side hustle slash hobby that he's working on also full time, and just putting in a lot of effort and just making tons of progress here in this, because I mean, like you say, like we all build tools to help ourselves. So it's like, it's also helping you in your own development, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I built this because like I wanted like just something to accelerate my hobby projects. Like I was actually working on a Vision Pro app earlier in the year, and I was starting to use Claude Opus when that came out to work on it and work on some random level generation and stuff like that. And I was finding like, hey, like this is really tedious. Like I'm burning messages, getting the AI to like output the whole file. Copy pasting changes is really tedious. Just getting the context of my files into the AI is super tedious. Like there's like so much tedium, and I was like, why does this suck so hard? So like I was like, I got to solve that problem before I can build this game. And I just kind of got like
I
lost in the sauce
see.
on that. But
That's
yeah,
so
that's where we're at.
funny. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna build the
Yeah,
game, but let me build the thing that helps me build the game, and then like it's becomes a
yeah.
full time thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So and like Vision Pro is still new, so like it's not something that like you can expect to make much money on building apps for yet.
Are there
But yeah,
any other
like
cool stuff we can
this
try in this like demo here, just to show some people a little bit more of the capabilities?
Yeah. So one thing is cool is like I can search for different components. So I can say like like let's say toolbar. So you can see like we can do a path search here. So I can search for the files, add them directly. I can remove these files, add them directly. We got different sorting options here for your files here. We can clear out this selection, the folders. We've got like down here. There's like I was showing people the previews, so we can click through visualize previews. So a lot of people have been asking about color coding for this stuff. Like it's something that's like actually it's non-trivial to do if you're a native app, because you don't get the benefit of all these web frameworks. Even the diff view, like this looks simple. You're like, oh yeah, I've seen like a diff view a million times. Well, the hard part is building it like in native Swift, like by hand. Like that's actually a really tricky problem. Um, so like getting everything in line, like everything down to like the diff generation to like going down to like how I'm presenting, being able to accept reject, like everything is like super hand built custom. Like it's that's how you have to kind of go about it when you're building like this. Another nice thing here with the chat app is like I'm showing you these are all the files that are built going to be sent in your prompt. You can actually copy them directly if you're like, oh yeah, I want this. You can preview them. Oh, well, that one didn't open for some reason, but yeah, you get the toolbar right there. This is the last cache version of the toolbar. What's nice as well is since this is a companion app, like people are like, okay, well, why would I use a side app versus like what's built in with an IDE? Like it's much easier with IDE. Well, the thing that's funny with coding is that these files are actually all just like this is the shared truth, right? Like if I edit a file, I can open it up in a side Git app. Like most people don't use the Git like UI that comes with their IDE. They use their own separate one. So in a similar vein, like I'm like using this to edit my files. Once the files are saved, like the IDE will reload it and detect it. And the same way, if I save it there, this app will redetect it as well. So if I like reset a file elsewhere and I set a new prompt, the AI is going to automatically grab the latest version of that file, and then use that. So you don't have to worry about like keeping things in sync. Like that's just automatic. So yeah. In terms of other files here, so other features here. So one thing that's actually really nice is I can actually include the file tree. So if I go ahead and include the file tree here, I can go ahead and open and start a new chat here and paste that in. And I can show the AI will see a nice file tree with like all the files and folders that are in my app here. So this is like the built version, so that's not super helpful. But like things like just knowing where your images are. So if you're asking it to like go ahead and edit images, like edit images on your website, like it needs to
Wow.
know where to find them, what the paths are. If it needs to know what files you have already. So if I'm asking it to like edit things and create files, like it needs to know which files exist and don't. So this is automatically sent when I start a chat. Like it'll automatically know which files are included. So if I only talk about like one file, it'll be like, hey, like, I need to see this file, or we want to edit that file. Like, can you go ahead and include it? You can go ahead and include that. So yeah, there's I've put a lot of thought into that.
That's cool.
There's more coming as well in terms of you being smarter about like what your file tree is. So right now, like this is a fairly small repository in terms of like total tokens. Like most projects are going to be much more than 10K tokens for like just one thing. So I can't afford to add everything. So being able to search for files and include things selectively is very important. And to that end, like something that I'm actively researching and gonna hopefully implement soon is a way to like have the AI like auto select things about your like auto select which files are proposed selected files for you.
Mm.
Being able to like more easily just like reformulate your prompt. So like one thing we talked about with like architect planning is being able to like like set up your prompt. But like say I'm writing a simple thing, the AI with knowledge of my files, of my code structure, of maybe a map of my directory, we'll be able to say like, hey, actually, like maybe you should change your prompt to be a little bit more specific. So propose prompt changes like that. So that's something that's in the pipeline as well. So things like
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some other cool instructions that you'd like to have? I know we talked a little bit about the architect prompt,
Mhm.
and then like, what are some of the other ones that you like to use here?
Yeah, so this one here is one that I like to use when I'm working on the web class. So like basically just having instructions on how to group code blocks, because that's something that I find often becomes annoying when you're dealing with AI on Claude Web. Is basically like, oh, it'll start adding a lot of placeholders, or it'll like give you a code block with like three functions that are like not anywhere near each other in your file, stuff like that. So like that's part of the instructions that you might want to like think about. So you're saying like, oh, I want separate code blocks if the code isn't contiguous, like if it's like not in a block. Um, like if it's a short file, or if you're modifying a lot of code in the file, just give me the whole thing. If not, like just focus on small code blocks that I can easily paste. So like thinking about like how I want to work with the AI on the web and putting that into instructions and saving that, it goes a long way in helping you, be more efficient with your
Oh,
time,
that's
which is
cool.
really important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of people have been asking me about different prompts and different prompt techniques. And so I feel like for me, sometimes I've been going a little too extra. Like I've been trying to go so hard in the paint. I'm like, yo, I need that mega prompt. I need that, that one that's gonna do everything. And I think what I'm learning from you is just, hey, maybe just kind of think about them a little bit in sequences of steps. Like, Ray,
Mhm.
just chill for a second. Everything's still going to be there, and sometimes I'm just afraid of losing the window or the context window for these LLMs. So I feel like I have to give it as much as possible because it's going to hit that limit really quickly, and it's going to lose its sense of memory. And so, how are you kind of working with that, or like what's maybe some of the techniques that you can take us through? So
Yeah.
in this example here, you basically said, hey. We've just now added some blogging, and so like, what would be some other things that you would do next, or how would you continue like building this out or interacting?
Yeah, so well, to continue in building the blog feature, I'd have to probably add more dependencies, which I don't want to do live on the stream. But just on
Just
your
YOLO,
point
man.
of
Let's
like how
YOLO.
you're working with, on your point of like how you're thinking about like what you're organizing your prompts, is that one thing that's really important to know with most AIs is that the more context you give them, the more likely they are to be confused. And that's actually something that I think about a lot with this like pro chat mode, is like you want to think about like each prompt you have like a fixed amount of intelligence available to you. And the more you fill with instructions and the more complexity you add, the more strictness you add, you're allocating intelligence to those different parts of your task. And you have to think about like, okay, I actually just want to make a small change to this. Okay, so that's the crux of my change. So I want to allocate the bulk of my intelligence to that. So when you're formulating your prompt, you want to really make it clear that that's what you're going for. And you want to restrict, okay, well, what files are actually involved in that change. Do I need all of these files here to give that change? Maybe not. Like, so you can try different prompts. If you're using Claude on the web, especially as your iterative testing ground, you can try it and say like, okay, like if I give these files, is that enough to get the AI to do the task? And if it's not, well then okay, then I can add, and try again. But a key thing that you want to do as much as possible is start fresh chats. Don't like keep them going on for too long, because then you're going to have this compounding history that's going to make it dumber and dumber, and to eventually you hit your limits too. And if you're working with Claude on the web as well, one big thing that you have to keep in mind is that your limits are not based on number of messages like ChatGPT is. Your limits are based on token usage. So like if you're adding, tons of context and making the AI reply long messages, you're going to eat away your limits. You're going to hit them faster. And that's
Wow.
why like I see a lot of people using the projects feature and they're like, oh my God, I get 7 messages a day. This is terrible. But like turn off the projects feature. Just, if you're using Repo Prompt, like just pick the files you want, paste them in, keep it small, keep it simple. You're going to get better results. Your AI is going to be smarter, and you're also going to use your limits much more slowly. So that's a really important thing.
Wow. That's a really great tip. I think if you're just tuning in right now, that's probably like the golden rule here. It's like, um, keep your prompts small, keep them actionable. Like you said, you have a couple different ones for architect, right? You could just ask the architect question, go in there, and then, select the relevant files or even just the file tree of things that you need. And just say, so if you're working like with Next.js or something like that, or you're working on this web dev stuff, what are some of your favorite files to kind of pick across? Because sometimes I think I saw you picking up like the package.json, which
Yes.
I wouldn't think to include, but I didn't think that would be important. But that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So if let's open up the package here and take a look at what's in there. So like this is telling the AI like, okay, these are my scripts. So this is actually when you're working on web dev, like it's super important to like think about which scripts you're using to build, because like that'll depend like how your dependencies work together. It also gives the AI knowledge about like, okay, well these are actually the libraries that I already have installed. So don't worry about like adding new ones or doing one that solves the same problem as the one that I've already got here already. And like so the AI can know like, okay, I've got React DOM, I've got these icons, like I'm able to work with this, and you can say like, here it is. And then if it needs to make edits to this, like, oh, if you're automatically doing that, well, that this is a small file, like the AI is actually able to make edits to the package JSON automatically. And then you just have to run a command to rebuild it from there.
That's
So
nice.
that's actually a simple thing you can do as well. Um, yeah, so like it's actually quite important. You never want to include your package lock, because like look how big that thing is. That's like 200K tokens. Like that will just eat you up.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
um,
I like this
yeah, and that's
visualization of
regenerated anyway.
tokens. Oh, so that's what that little squiggly line is down there next to the file. It's actually the token size for that file, grouped by the
Exactly. So each
folders.
file, you'll be able to see like how it's using, how much it's using, and you'll also see like the percentage of your total allocation of tokens. So you can spot like outliers. So if I add the package lock, all of a sudden like everything goes to zero because this is 95% of the token usage, and I can go ahead and just remove that right there, and then everything resets accordingly. Um,
Whoa, that's interesting. So I feel like for me, it's just really handy to kind of better understand my repo. Like I didn't
yeah.
know that just that lock package lock file is a binary file that's going to throw it in there. It's just taking up
Yeah,
space.
it
Sheesh.
does. Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to throw that into your prompt. You're going to bust your limits really quick. So that's the thing. Like some config files, like this config CSS, actually maybe you want it to be in there. Like there's actually some stuff in there. Like you can, it's really small. You can do that. The Tailwind config JS, that was actually quite useful. It defines like primary colors. That's actually something that goes cascading down if you're using Tailwind. So yeah, definitely a good one to include. But yeah, definitely not package block. Your README you can actually include, and what's nice with the edit features, you can actually have it update your readmes as you're adding features. So I just I added the blog feature. Let me turn off this as well and take off these because it's not useful for this. Um, let's update my readme to better reflect the state of my app. So we can go ahead and start a new chat, and we'll run through that. Um, so it's going to go ahead and talk about my app, getting started. It's gonna update my README, telling it like these are all the changes. Updating my project structure. So actually having the AI update your README for you is super helpful. And what's nice with this is like, see, it's breaking down the changes into different parts, and it's able to go ahead and just integrate all that right there. So all the different parts already right there. So updating readmes is super nice. Updating, I find that this is also good. I've been talking to one of my like top users of this app, and he was telling me that he uses it very heavily for markdown editing. Like he works with like large markdown files in his enterprise job, and he's like using this constantly to help him like update that. And what's cool is like as you're working on your files, like this like update of the README, it could be like an afterthought. You can be just like in my prompt, like as I'm updating, like as you update features, be sure to update the README accordingly if necessary.
Wow, that's really nice.
Yeah, and you can just have that as a back throwaway instruction in there, and it'll get updated as well. So that's quite nice. And then you can see like now that it's loaded, like the README is there. It's updated with all the changes, so you can see when you preview it, it's right there.
That's fantastic. Wow, that's really cool. So we've learned quite a bit today. And in terms of like the whole reason why people started to watch because they're really interested. It's like, is this tool going? How is this tool going up head to head with Cursor and able to kind of do the thing? And just a disclaimer for people: this is a Mac only app. Repo Prompt. If you just go to repoprompt.com, it's currently in beta, and you can do a beta test. None of this is sponsored, by the way. I discovered this app, online, and I thought, hey, there's all these other apps like Aider and people who are like coding and doing different stuff. And what's really interesting about what Eric is doing is just making like a Mac only native app, which can allow you to do different things. Like he was saying earlier, it's not Electron based. So he's able to do this file diffing. He's able to basically just go right to the metal of the machine and say, we're going to do these operations by hand, in essence, and actually make that experience really smooth and better. And so some of the advantages here that like people don't really that are just starting to realize. Somebody asked, does this support Ollama? And it actually does. And so what Ollama does is that you can run a language model locally on your machine, and then you can have your chats and all your different stuff go to those models and then run and execute and do what we're doing here. So you don't even need an API key from a provider. So your subscription cost is literally zero. So that's what's crazy. You go from paying a large dollar amount to zero if you wanted to do that. If you have models like on Open Router, you can do that with some of the cheaper models as well. OpenAI, Anthropic. If you have Azure credits, you can do those things as well, right? You can pop them right in. It's extremely flexible and really cool. And it offers a lot of features of what Cursor does. It's not an IDE in essence. It's basically like an enhanced text editor with AI interactions. And so how is this different than just going from Claude on the web or like OpenAI and then copying and pasting your code there? This whole thing actually has access to your repo, and you can select the files. And one of the amazing parts that I didn't realize is that when you select those files, it tells you the tokens that are used there. And so what's important about those tokens that are used is that like if you select the wrong file, like a package lock file, you'll see how much percentage of your tokens are used. And you actually don't really need that a lot of the times. By unselecting it, then you save that much more. And then, so if you are paying with an API key, Eric is extremely smart and diligent saying, hey, I don't always need to send the context back, because apparently when you use some of these chat apps, it's going to roll back all of the previous stuff you've pasted in. So people will find that they're eating their limits very quickly on Claude. Because, if you have like maybe 200,000 tokens or maybe 400,000 tokens for the day or something, just an example, a couple different, if you just throw your entire, code base in there, you're going to be eating up stuff real quickly. So that's a really interesting heads up on that. And then I think the other features that are really cool that I like are in the instructions, the little hamburger menu that basically allows you to save some of your common prompts. And earlier we talked a little bit about some of the prompting techniques. So keeping your prompts much shorter is going to be extremely valuable to get the most out of these language models, and then selecting the types of code that you want. So kind of chunking things down, saying I want to be, giving it like, especially for the smaller models, like telling it exactly what its role is. So like, this is an AI prompt and this is your role as an architect. This is your role as this person. So like, this was some really valuable knowledge that we learned just from our conversation today, and then kind of what Repo Prompt unlocks for you. And this is, a free app right now to test in beta, and then you need to download the test flight. So the test flight is Apple's, testing platform. And then the link on his website at repoprompt.com will get you access to the test flight invite so that you can go ahead and test. Because I think there's like limited numbers of people that can test. So if you're watching this right now, you should be able to get into it right now. I feel like there's not like this crazy overhead. But if it goes viral tomorrow, then good luck. Yes. So I feel like, there were some expectations for people who were like, that were not aware if they were Windows users. And like, this is something, if you're a Windows user, you can't really try out unless you get access to a Mac. But I feel like this could be a moment where you can switch. It is really nice to be able to handle this type of stuff. And I think another unique thing in your pro edit mode is that we kind of unlocked. So was this like the way that you can actually choose the models you want to edit for what he considers small files and large files. And you could even set the
Yeah.
threshold by lines of code, right?
That's right. Yeah. So if you were here earlier, I was talking a little bit about what the diff mode is. I'll just recap that briefly. So basically, the idea is you want to be able to have partial file edits. Like if you're working on a really large file, like it's just untenably expensive to have the AI output the whole thing. If you're using a small model, it's just going to get lost and like get confused about like what the changes are and how to do it. The more context you give, like I said, like intelligence is like a fixed amount per prompt. You ought to be like careful about how you're spending that. So it's like a resource you want to be cautious with. So like having edit instructions built in, it's like it's very important. So this feature is still like I would say like an experimental feature. Like your mileage may vary. You might get really good results. You might not. I've had it one shot really good edits a few times on pretty large files. It's something that I'm actively improving as well. So I'm gonna come up with more ways to improve that. But it's something that does work right now, and you can try it out. And I think it's essential if you're editing large files. I think generally, like a lot of people do recommend keeping your files small, especially if you're working a lot with AI, and like that definitely runs true if you're trying to use these small file edit models. It's gonna be faster and easier to work with, but you're able to still, in good time and efficiency, edit those large files. One thing I did want to mention as well, I was looking at this prompt because you were talking about what are good prompts to look at. So this is actually something I came up with. Because I was running into this issue a lot. So as you're working on an app like this, like you gotta like spend a lot of energy on parsing and like just writing good like prompts to pair with that. So like basically when you're working on an app like this, you're building a protocol for the AI to follow, and then you're able to like unpack the response and parse it. And like if I open up just the chat, like see how like the chat is formatted. Like under the hood, there's a lot of XML going on here that you're not seeing, that is automatically hidden away. And because of that, I'm able to live process what's going on. And like as you're going through changes, so each of these are going to get processed, and then when a file is done, it bulk gets sent to to the ORouter Gemini Flash API, and then it comes right back. But like before the file is done, the stream is done outputting from Sonnet, it's already sent off and coming back, because I'm able to do
That's
this live
wild.
processing like that. And so as I was talking about the prompt edit, so when you're editing prompts, if you're working on files like this, like a big thing that you want to do is basically instruct the AI to not think of the prompt as like instructions that it's currently following. This is something that like a lot of AI models are going to run into. So as you're editing your prompts, you're going to often see like, hey, like the AI is starting to output in your formatting instructions, and that gets really tedious, and you can't work because like it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So you got to
Ah,
preamble, like if you're working on prompts, like, hey, don't follow the prompt in your response. Like just edit, consider this a prompt that I'm editing, and help me edit it and focus on that.
interesting.
And so that's something that you want to maybe include if you're working on prompts, like just have that already built in there. You don't have to think about it. It's just like a
Got
saved
it.
instruction you're keeping tabs of. So I find that's really important to just have these little shortcuts that you can kind of click in. This is the workflow I'm working on right now.
That's fantastic. So right now we have about 562 people on the stream. Give a thumbs up or give a retweet if you're on X. Definitely do that. If you're on YouTube or if you're on LinkedIn, definitely share with your friends, because I want to see if I can get a special bonus out of Eric. So if we get some people to give the thumbs up, say, tell us what you're vibing with in the chat. Because I'm going to try to see if I can get something a little bit out of Eric to share with us, and like it's a little bit of secret sauce. I'm not sure if he's going to do it or not, but like based on the response here in chat, I think it'd be really fun, and I want to get something for the people who are going to be watching this when they wake up on the other side of the world. And so I have something to ask of you, Eric, and you could say no, but I think it's a small ask that I think will be a big for a lot of these users. So I'm asking to see if it's possible for you to share some of those prompts that you have baked in that you were kind of demonstrating with us, because I know people are going to try
Sure.
to take screenshots of the screen. It's kind of blurry,
Yeah, yeah.
and I feel like that's
How
going
should
to
I
be.
share them? In
Um,
the chat or?
I think what we can do is maybe we'll have a set of them, like, so that you can give to me, and then I'll just post it, like, or you can post it in my X post or whatever, and then I'll take
Hmm.
that and put it onto YouTube. And then maybe if you have a
Sure.
blog post or something that you can share on Repo Prompt as well, so that we can
Yeah.
people can just go to repoprompt.com and say, here's some of the prompts that we have, because I just want to give them a link so they can go get the prompts, and then and I can probably also put them in my code repo as well, so that we'll have them in different places.
Certainly.
So like if you're watching on YouTube, you'll have them in the description. If you're watching on X, I'll just have them in the next post below that. And then repoprompt.com will have them. And then maybe even a feature request to have some of the instructions baked into the actual repo prompts. But I feel like
Sure.
even people who, like the Windows users who did watch this stream, I think that will be very helpful for them, because this app, while it may not run, there you go, cursor directory, while it may not run on Windows, you can still use these prompts for yourself to go use them into other apps. So it's like, while you may not be able to use this, I feel like this will be something to give back to you for tuning in today. I feel like, as a thank you.
Yeah, cheers. I'm happy to share the prompts. I'll link to them at the end of the stream.
Yeah.
In the interim, one thing that I actually recommend with people, no, thank you so much, is go to cursordirectory.com, like it's just cursor.directory. It's a really nice site that was put together. It says cursor, but like really, this is just like a code, like a prompt repository. You can go ahead and find like different people submit their favorite prompts, and what's really nice is you can just go ahead and copy that, and then open up the app, do new, and then just paste that in. And so this is a TypeScript, boom, saved. And then it's auto added right here. I can just look at that. It's right there. So like
Sweet.
you can save these easily. These are cached for when you reopen the app. They're all there. Yeah. So I find it's really, really helpful to just check that out.
That's excellent.
Communities and prompts are really important to form. Like I think people are finding best practices, what works best for them. But like, don't be afraid to edit it. Like you see this prompt has a lot of stuff in here. Like, there's really a lot of complexity. Like you don't need all of this generally. Like to me, this prompt is probably really overkill. Like, okay, I'm working on a UI element. Do I need to think about like state management here? Do I need to like deal with like writing unit tests every time, like secure, like this is like I don't need to prevent an attack like from working on a new button. Like so like break this up into different prompts. That's my advice to you if you're working on
I
something like
see.
this. Like break this up and then piecemeal add the ones that you need in a given moment. So you have a security prompt. I'm working on the security feature. Here's the security feature. I'm working on testing. Let's add the testing prompt. Keep it
Oh,
simple.
I
Don't use your
see.
tokens for nothing. Think of it like you have an allocation of intelligence. You want to make sure that you're using it efficiently. You're not putting too much there for nothing. um and let it work. There's another thing I wanted to bring up when I'm working on this, and I see a lot of, and this is something that I see like a lot of people when they're working on like code iteration. They'll be like, they'll tell the AI like, hey, like output only the code, don't output anything else, and that's it. Like you can do that, and AI, it may or may not follow that, and maybe it'll work. And the smarter the AI gets, the better it'll be at following instructions. But the problem with that is that when an AI is answering you, if it's following that instruction, it's fighting really hard against its like post training to like do that, and you're kind of allocating intelligence towards not doing that, and that's like annoying for your output because you're making it dumber. And like AI thrives under some structure, but you don't want to have so much structure that it can't express itself. So like the AI loves to say the word certainly because it's been trained so hard to say that. And if you tell it you can't say that word, then it's gonna struggle. It's gonna have an aneurysm.
That's
So let it say those
interesting.
words. Let it say these things. I
Oh,
call them like release valves for the AI when it's answering. So just let it have these release valves of like, let it like say what it needs to say, and it'll be really happy to assist you, and like let it just do its job. And at the end, like it'll tell you its little preamble what it did. Let it do that. That's fine. Like work around how the AI is made to work, and that's kind of a big factor with how the app's built here.
that is amazing insight. I mean, Eric is actually working on an app around prompting, and like this is literally, I feel like just a masterclass just by itself on prompting. So you don't necessarily have to use his app. All these techniques that he's been doing in his research to make this, right? Like it all started with trying to make games, right? Because you're a game developer and wanting to make these types
Yeah.
of things, and in the XR space, it's like, yeah, I need something that's really good. And so in this era of like doing this stuff, you then start to get into prompting, and then and these are so important because I'm so guilty of just throwing like these giant prompts into my things, and just like I think what I like about your app is the fact that you're just saying you can kind of keep them almost as shortcuts up there in the instructions and say,
Yeah.
okay, right now I'm just going to do button work or UI work. And then just going to put these types of things in there for those instructions. And I don't have to think about it. And so one of the parts that saves me time is like, I don't have to go to GitHub and copy this and paste this in. And I think that's kind of what prevents me from adding like, and cursor rules only allows me to have one file as cursor rules. And then so they're trying to, in their composer view, they try to say like set up notebooks. So then I'm having to manage like multiple states in my head of like, okay, what cursor rule do I have enabled right now? I still want this to work, but I don't want. And so then it becomes this like juggling in my head that I don't necessarily want to do. But in essence, with your app, you're just saying, okay, just add in the compose window. That's kind of where you can go back and forth. So if I'm in a different mode, I could just hit the X and say, okay, I don't need the TypeScript prompt right now. Right now, I just need to cook with like, a backend type of thing. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then just, do that type of thing. And I also want to do some security stuff too. So I'm going to do that. Or I have one that goes and searches perplexity. So I'm going to put that in so that any types of things that I need to do research on, it's going to pop in and give me links to perplexity. So it's just kind of utilizing this type of workflow. And in essence, with Repo Prompt, yeah, you basically, that's the whole goal of the app, right? It's to have your repo available. And then I think the biggest unlock that I forgot to tell people, and this is another secret now that you've made it this far in the stream, is that you can actually have more than one repo that you can prompt, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go ahead and open another one here.
Bomb
I
squad,
can open
let's
this
go.
one here, and then I got two repos open right now.
That's
And
crazy.
it opened really quick to automatically filter out all the git ignore stuff, and yeah, I can remove that there, and
Let's
then it goes
go.
away.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah, because one of the things that I was doing, especially when the OpenAI released their new streaming real time API, I had that repo open because it was an example repo written in JavaScript. And I have my repo that's a Next.js app written in TypeScript. So I'm actually literally trying to pull the essence of those things out, and then I'm applying like TypeScript principles into the app. It's like, okay, so I got to set up WebSockets, and I got to set up these things, and then make these type safe. So I have these additional instructions, but I'm still wanting to reference the example, reference the code base, and ask you those types of questions. So that makes it just easier for me to have these multi-turn conversations and application of the files. Wow. We've covered a whole bunch of stuff. And so for those who are just kind of like watching again, is this a cursor killer? I think it's totally up to you to make the decision. If you're a Windows user, it's definitely not a killer at all. You came into the stream thinking that you're going to be like able to use this app on Windows, and I just totally forgot because I'm not in the Windows world, but I should be more aware. And like heads up to me. But like, yeah, I just use a Mac. I've been using Macs for years now. I used to be a big PC guy, so yeah. To each their own, but that's okay. We do have some sauce for you if you're a Windows user. We just dropped a bunch of stuff, knowledge about prompting. And then Eric is going to get us some of those prompts available. So we're going to have those to share. So if you're watching, it's going to be on the description and in your favorite stream, Twitch, X, LinkedIn, YouTube. It'll be in the descriptions. We're also going to see if we can get that available on Repo Prompt itself. So that way you can take some of these prompts and put them into your favorite language model. But definitely, if you're going to be using this stuff, use Repo Prompt, and you can put this stuff. It's a free app, currently available as a beta for you to download and test. And it basically allows you to see how many tokens you're using in your app, what types of instructions you want to do. You can chat with it using these different models. You can also chat with offline models completely. You can be in an airplane with Ollama set up on your Mac, running your models locally, and just cook, like straight up. Like just keep going. I think that's super exciting. Imagine being on an 8-hour flight. You're just local models. That's so cool. That's just so
Yeah.
awesome, man.
On that note, I just want to add a thing. So like one thing that I made a point of with this app is that there's no backend, right? There's no server. I'm not collecting any data. This app is free. While it's in test flight, I'm always gonna have a free version for sure. Like I'm still deciding if I want to change some of that later. But the big thing about this is like the API keys. I'm not intercepting anything there. There's a secured encrypted connection with each of these providers using SSL. I don't know, like once you hit send, like it just goes off. I don't keep any logs of that. It goes away. It's gone. Um, and like you don't have to think about like me reading your code or me like intercepting any of these API calls. So like everything is direct. There's none of that with Ollama. Like it's all offline. But you can use this app offline as well, just to compose your prompts. Without an internet connection, it'll work just fine. Like there's no limitations on that. Like the app for composing like that, you can do that. If you have a better editor for your Ollama that you like to use, a better chat window, and you're just using prompt, you can just use that for the copy feature. That's up to you. If it is better, let me know why, and like I'm happy to keep improving the app. Like I super responsive to feedback, and that's
Wow.
something that's very important to me.
So like last place, where can people actually find this if they just go to repoprompt.com,
Yeah,
right?
repoprompt.com. That's it. Repoprompt.com. The test flight link is there. And the Discord's there as well. Like if you have feedback, like please join the Discord. Like I'm very receptive to feedback. Like what's not working for you, like tell me. Like I try to fix it pretty quick. Like the other day someone came in, he's like, hey, it was my first time using the app. I had some issues. So like one thing he told me was like, hey, like I thought this was clickable and it wasn't. Well, now it is clickable. Like now you can click that.
That's awesome.
And then someone he was telling me is like, oh, like I want to have a shortcut to the links. Well, you can click like Anthropic key, and then that just opened here, opened in my console there, like it just opened there. So open like shortcuts are important. Perfect. Like I'm happy to listen to your simple gripes. Like that thing's not good. You know, another someone else asked me like, so I'll open this up here and open up Repo Prompt Web. Someone else asked me like, hey, like I'm looking through these files, like I want to be able to open it, so I can go reveal in Finder, and then it's right there, and I can reveal the file, and it just opens up. And
Amazing.
you can also copy file directly, so I can copy that, and the file's right there. Like I can just copy that right there. So I
Wow.
can just say like,
Oh,
hey, I
that's
want
super
this one
nice.
copy. It's right there. So like just being able to like have shortcuts, like all that stuff, like
Hmm.
it's just really important stuff.
Yeah, community driven like development. Like Eric is a solo
Yeah.
founder. He's like only one that's doing this, and is basically, I feel like he's implementing features because he's able to do it on the Mac natively, a lot faster and even a lot cleaner as far as architecture. And Eric has I think are you principal engineer at Unity? Is that what it is? Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, I'm a principal. Sorry, not principal, staff.
a staff engineer.
Hopefully, I'll be principal at some point. But yeah, right now it's just staff, which is still pretty good, I think.
Yeah, he's goat level
Having a
right
good
now.
time doing it
Yeah, I mean, to be able to do this, we're doing that type of thing. We had a prompting masterclass here, and he's sharing along the way. So definitely, you're also on X as PVNCHER, right, at the @ symbol there.
Yeah, it's like Puncher with a V. It's a good short
Yeah,
handle.
yeah, that's awesome. It kind of plays off his last name, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you haven't had a chance, definitely a cool follow. He's sharing his cool stuff. I mean, XR development, which is just the whole like cracked level. If you are totally like into all that stuff, and I mean, thank you so much for joining the stream. This has been extremely enlightening for myself because I like to prompt and do these things, and I'm on my journey to ship my app and do my different things. And this is something that I bumped into, and I thought, man, this is something that we have to let everyone else know about. And this is like, I'm all for independent developers and sharing information, and you've just been super helpful. You've even given some of our Windows users, even though they're not getting some of the love from the app, they could still join the Discord and ask questions.
Yeah,
There's probably
definitely.
a lot of people in there into software development and AI LMs, and like such a pleasure to have you on. Is there anything else you want to share as far as like where people can find you, or kind of what you're up to or something?
Yeah, I mean, my handle's good for other networks as well. If you're not on X, or I'm on Blue Sky as well, and Threads or whatever. If you want to do that, LinkedIn as well. You can check out some of my stuff. Yeah, I mean, the app's a work in progress. It's something that I put a lot of energy into because I use it to improve it as well. So like, I'm very passionate about it. It's a native app, so like I can put a lot of nice energy into making a design that I think solves the problem rather than trying to shoehorn the problem into an existing interface like a VS Code. So I'm just trying to, build what I can out of this, and, put my 2 cents of like how I think about these problems, and learn along the way with you all. So yeah, happy to share. Thanks so much for your time, Ray. It's been great to, share with your audience, and hopefully people are, more informed from it and give it a try.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, thanks, y'all, for joining. Make sure you check out repoprompt.com, repoprompt.com.
That's right.
To go ahead and download the app. It's for free if you're a Windows user. We're gonna have some prompts up there for you that you can use to paste into Claude, and I'm gonna try to have some of the bookmarks all set up, and then make sure you follow us at Ray Fernando 1337 at PV Ncher there. And we'll see y'all on the next stream. Take it easy. Peace out, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.